Let me tell you about Nadia Osei, 34 years old. Chief Information Security Officer at Vantage Analytics, a data intelligence firm that sold Fortune 500 companies one very specific promise: your client data is untouchable. Nadia was the reason that promise wasn't a lie. For 8 years, she built Vantage's entire security infrastructure from scratch. Every firewall, every access protocol, every compliance framework that kept them on the right side of GDPR, HIPAA, and SOC 2, and every encryption key that locked the most sensitive client data the company held. $400 million worth of contracts sat behind those keys: financial records, healthcare data, government procurement files. The kind of information that, if exposed, didn't just end careers, it ended companies. On a Tuesday morning in February, Vantage Analytics decided she was the problem. They handed her a termination letter citing performance issues, 20 minutes to collect her things, a box, a smile, a door. What they forgot, what their PA-appointed CEO, their freshly hired CTO, and their entire leadership team failed to check, was one specific technical detail. Nadia hadn't just managed the encryption keys. She had structured them. Under a key management architecture she designed herself, in which the master decryption credentials were stored in a hardware security module registered to one individual, hers, and the moment Vantage terminated her without following the documented offboarding protocol she had written, reviewed, and asked them to sign off on 3 separate times, that module didn't transfer. It locked, and $400 million in client data became completely legally, technically inaccessible, not hacked, not stolen, just locked by the woman they just fired for performance issues. This is the story of how one termination letter shut down a $400 million data empire overnight, triggered regulatory investigations across 3 industries, and made Nadia Osei the most called woman in enterprise security for the next 2 years. Buckle up. This twist doesn't require a clause. It requires a password only one person knows. It started on a Tuesday morning. Nadia was at her desk at 7:45 a.m. earlier than almost everyone else, the way she always was, running her weekly security audit when the calendar invite appeared. Subject: one-on-one check-in. 9 a.m. Daniel Marsh, CEO, appointed 8 months ago by the private equity firm that acquired Vantage. A man who had spent his career in consumer packaged goods before landing in data intelligence because the pay firm liked his operational transformation track record. A man who once asked Nadia whether the encryption thing was really necessary for clients who probably don't care about that stuff. Nadia stared at the invite. No agenda, no pre-read, no context. She picked up her phone and called her deputy, Jerome Banks. Jerome, she said, if anyone requests system access outside of normal protocol this morning, you hold it. Log everything. Jerome paused. You expecting something? I'm expecting everything, Nadia said. That's the job. She hung up. Then she opened her desk drawer and removed a small laminated card, the kind that looked like a hotel key card if you didn't know what it was. Her HSM access credential, hardware security module. The physical device that stored the master encryption keys for Vantage's entire client data environment. She looked at it for 3 seconds, put it in her jacket pocket, and walked to Daniel's office. Daniel's office smelled like new furniture and ambition with no follow-through. He was already seated. So was Priya Sham, the new chief people officer, who had been at the company 4 months and still called the security team the tech guys, and Garrett Lowe, general counsel, expensive suit. The expression of a man handed a script he hadn't written. Nadia, Daniel said, aiming for warmth, landing near room temperature. As we align with our new strategic direction, we've made the difficult decision to part ways. Nadia tilted her head. On what grounds? Priya slid a document across the desk. Performance concerns, Priya said. Communication style. Resistance to organizational change. Nadia looked at the document. 3 paragraphs, vague language. No dates, no specific incidents, no prior written warnings. No performance improvement plan, nothing she had ever signed. She looked up. Garrett, she said, has legal reviewed the offboarding protocol for the CISO role? Garrett adjusted his collar. We're following standard procedure. I'm not asking about standard procedure, Nadia said. I'm asking about the CISO specific offboarding protocol I submitted to leadership in January. The one requiring a 72-hour transition window and dual authorization before any credentials are transferred. Garrett stared at her. Daniel blinked. We have IT handling the transition. Who in IT? Nadia asked. Marcus Webb, Priya said. Nadia nodded slowly. Marcus Webb had been at the company for 6 weeks, had never been granted HSM access, had never been trained on the key management architecture, didn't know the HSM existed. "I'll collect my things," Nadia said. And she walked out with a laminated card still in her pocket. Now, if you love stories where preparation beats arrogance every single time, subscribe to Tangled Stories. I'm Brett. Every week, the quiet ones win here, and Nadia was very, very quiet. Nadia spent exactly 17 minutes packing personal notebooks, a small cactus named Gerald, her Stanford graduation photo. Jerome appeared in the doorway. "They're already calling me," he said quietly. "Marcus Webb wants system admin access. Did you log the request?" Nadia asked. "Time-stamped," Jerome said. "Good. Follow protocol. Every step. By the book." Jerome lowered his voice. "The HSM does Webb even know?" "No," Nadia said simply. "He doesn't." She patted Jerome on the shoulder, picked up Gerald the cactus, and walked to the elevator. At 11:07 a.m., from the back seat of her car, she sent one email. To Jerome, to Garrett Lowe, and to board chair Helena Voss, whom Nadia had briefed personally 6 months ago about the HSM architecture. Subject: TISO transition, key management protocol not followed, HSM access suspended per section 4.2. The body was short and precise. Her employment had been terminated without following the documented protocol. Per section 4.2, the HSM could not be accessed, transferred, or reset without dual authorization from the outgoing CISO and an approved successor. No successor had been designated. No handover had occurred. The HSM was locked. All encrypted client environments, including active contracts with Meridian Financial, COF Health Partners, and the Dodd Procurement Archive, were inaccessible until the protocol was followed. She was available to complete the proper handover process, subject to a formal written request and resolution of her termination circumstances. She hit send, went home, changed clothes, made jollof rice, was asleep by noon. At 2:17 p.m., Marcus Webb tried to access the client data environment. The system returned one line. Access denied. HSM authorization required. He called the previous infrastructure lead. Access denied. He called the cloud provider support line. Access denied. He escalated to their enterprise security vendor. Access denied. Because the HSM didn't care about org charts. It didn't care about P mandates or strategic realignments. It cared about one thing: the credential of the person who built it. By 5 p.m., the cloud vendor delivered the news no one wanted. The HSM was client-managed. Vantage owned it. And without the CISO's credentials and an authenticated handover, it could not be reset or bypassed without physically destroying the hardware, which would permanently erase every key inside it. Every key. For every client, forever. Garrett sat in his chair. Sighed, very quietly, to no one. Oh no. Day 2. The clients started calling. Meridian Financial at 8:02 a.m. Their trading analytics platform had been returning null values since yesterday afternoon. COF Health Partners at 8:44 a.m. Their patient outcome modeling tool has stopped processing. 3 hospital systems were waiting on outputs. Their queue used the word litigation. Dodd Procurement sent a secure government message at 9:15 a.m., 2 sentences. The second contained the phrase, federal compliance breach. Garrett forwarded it to Daniel without comment. Daniel forwarded it to board chair Helena Voss. Helena called an emergency board session herself. Her opening line was 7 words. Who approved the termination without the protocol? Daniel raised his hand. Like a child who broke a window. How long has the HSM been locked? Helena asked. 23 hours, Garrett said. Helena closed her eyes briefly. Get me Nadia, she said. At 10:47 a.m., Nadia's phone rang. She answered on the second ring. Nadia Osei. Nadia. Helena Voss. Controlled, direct. Already past the blame phase and deep into problem solving. This is Helena. I'm on with the board. Good morning, Helena. The offboarding protocol was not followed, Helena said. That's correct, Nadia replied. I submitted it January 14th. Garrett acknowledged it in writing January 21st. A pause. What would it take to restore access? Helena asked. The protocol, Nadia said. Section 4.2. A designated successor with 5 years of enterprise key management experience. A 72-hour parallel access period. Dual authentication handover. And a formal written request from the board. And your termination? Helena asked carefully. I'd like that discussed as part of the handover conversation, Nadia said. Before I sign anything. That's fair, Helena said. Then, Quieter. Nadia, this was not a decision I was consulted on. I know, Nadia said. That's why I emailed you directly. The next 72 hours inside Vantage Analytics were the kind that end up in business school case studies. Meridian Financial sent a formal breach notice. Cough Health retained outside counsel. DoD Procurement froze their next payment and flagged the incident for federal review. 3 separate regulatory inquiries opened simultaneously. The pay firm's managing partner flew in personally, sat in the boardroom, looked at Daniel Marsh, and said 4 words, fix it. Or resign. Daniel chose to pursue other opportunities by end of week. Priya followed on day 6. The number that ended up in every compliance briefing and security keynote for the next 3 years, $400 million in client data. Locked for 54 hours, because one person's name was on one device. And that person had been fired for performance issues. Nadia's terms delivered in writing to Helena and the full board were precise. She had written them in her notebook before she ever walked into Daniel's office. Because she's Nadia, and Nadia prepares. Full reinstatement as CISO with a 5-year contract. Base salary increased to market rate, $680,000. Retroactive pay for the termination period plus legal fees. A formal written apology from the board, acknowledging the termination was without cause. A company-wide security review conducted by her team, with authority to enforce outcomes. The CISO offboarding protocol enshrined permanently in the company's governance charter. And one more thing. A plaque, in the server room. Small, simple, engraved, security is not overhead. It is the floor. The board agreed to everything, without negotiation. Because when $400 million is locked, 3 regulators are asking questions, and the pay firm is threatening to pull funding, you don't negotiate with the person holding the key, you ask what they need. And you give it to them. The handover took exactly 72 hours as the protocol required. Nadia returned on it Thursday morning. Signed in at the front desk, Carl the security guard held the door. Welcome back, Ms. Osei. Thanks, Carl. How's the studying? Passed my Security Plus last week, he said, grinning. Nadia smiled. Genuinely. That's the one that matters. She rode up, sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and began the authentication process that unlocked $400 million in client data. It took 4 minutes and 11 seconds. She timed it. By Friday, every client had access restored. And the pay firm, humbled and considerably quieter, issued an internal memo mandating that every portfolio company with a CISO must follow documented offboarding protocols approved by the security lead. They called it the Osei standard. Not publicly. Internally, Nadia found out 6 months later from a friend at another portfolio company. She printed the memo, framed it, hung it next to the plaque in the server room. They say Daniel Marsh now runs operations for a logistics company in Phoenix. They say the first thing he asked their IT vendor during onboarding was, who holds the encryption keys? They say he held his breath until they answered. They say Gary Lowe still keeps a copy of Section 4.2 in his desk drawer and shows it to every new legal hire on their first day. And Nadia? Nadia still arrives at 7:45 a.m., still runs her weekly audit, still keeps Gerald the cactus on her desk. And whenever a new executive asks her what the biggest risk to the business is, she gives them the same answer, underestimating the people who hold the keys. They always laugh. Like it's a metaphor. It isn't, and that, my friends, is how one CISO turned a baseless termination letter into the most expensive IT lesson in Vantage Analytics history. Without raising her voice, without breaking a single rule, and without ever once letting the wrong person touch her keys. If this story hit your justice receptors hard, do me a solid, subscribe to Tangled Stories, drop a like, and share this with every IT professional who's ever been called overhead. Because here, every story has a twist. And sometimes that twist requires a hardware token and a very specific protocol. I'm Brett, and I'll see you in the next one.